let's just talk about the security issue real quick as kind of the introduction. So I don't want to give specific details on why or what's happening. As many of you know, I think out of all of the shows in politics, we may be the most swatted of 2022.
Yeah,
six so far. It's crossed state lines. The latest incident that we're dealing with now, the bomb squad, was a surprise to me. I go outside and I see a bunch of vehicles pulling up, and then I see a guy get out. And he's got a shirt that says bomb squad on it, and I was like, "Oh, the bomb squad's at my house."
Huh.
And I can't say exactly what happened, but it's effectively a swatting, not the exact same thing. And man, I got to be careful about some of the details. There's a lot to say, but maybe I can't actually say it. There's concerns, obviously, when we talk about these security issues pertaining to swattings or otherwise, that if we highlight it, it encourages it. And we've had police tell us that before. And I'm like, you're right, and so some of these instances we've not really talked about that much. The other concern is that making sure people are aware of what's going on is important for the safety and security in a similar sense. I would hate to have something happen that would be unbelievable, confusing, or just over. I don't know how to exactly explain it. My concern was, if something keeps happening and we ignore it and people don't know it's happening, and then something serious happens, it'll take everyone by surprise. Maybe we should be like, hey, put a tack in this. Something's happening. We're having security issues. People should know what's happening. But most importantly, before the show, when we were trying to figure out how to title what was going on and talk about what's going on, I was just like, I said this a moment ago, if this was any other outlet, if it was Crowder, if it was the Daily Wire, if it was the New York Times, we would be talking about it for a half an hour. We'd be exploring who did it, and we can't even get into a lot of those core details. So other than that, I just, when we were trying to figure out what our lead story was, usually we're up in the studio, we're sitting here, we're talking. This time we were out in front with a bunch of cops and I'm assuming feds and stuff like that. And so we didn't have the same kind of ease of prep work and understanding we normally get to do. And so we're trying to figure out, do we lead with this story? Oh, no, we put one up that was like, Joe Biden sucks. And we were like, he does. And we want to talk about those things. But then it was just like, it's an opinion statement. Yeah. And it's just like, well, we have the story from James O'Keefe, but he didn't actually upload the video yet. And I'm like, oh, did I just accidentally, break his story before him? So I'm like, we got to change it. And I'm like, the bomb squad's here.
Yeah.
I can't deal with this.
I find it's like the balance of, as a weird internet celebrity, whatever you want to call this weird new genre of like, you're a creator, your personality is your character. You got to balance out your own mental health with the journalistic integrity of documenting your life so that people know in the future like what you went through, and so they know what to expect if they're going to try and reproduce what you're doing. Sometimes talking about the bad things that happen to you is bad for your mental health, and you have to just let it fly, let it go.
As we talk about, the conflict in this country and the culture war and stuff, I'm also kind of concerned that we would omit relevant news in this space because it's happening to us.
Right.
I don't know if you guys, what your thoughts are on that. Because there's the self-interest thing where we've had the cop be like, don't tell anyone this happened because it'll make it worse. And I'm like, yeah. But if there's a New York Times journalist outside filming all of this, they'd post that online in 2 seconds and tell everybody what was happening, regardless of our security or otherwise. And it would be a major topic of conversation about the escalation and what's happening with these political conversations, with censorship, with violence and things like that.
Yeah, no, it's a tough call. I can't tell you one way or the other. I think that you have total control over the information here, at least with respect to whether it gets out. I mean, we don't really have anyone else from the New York Times filming this. Obviously, things can get out either way just because of people telling their family members about what's happening, things along those lines. But yeah, I'm not sure, man. It is a tough call. I think it makes sense. On some level, it makes sense to talk about it just because people should know the danger that is present in discussing these issues publicly.
Or how psychotic people have become.
And how psychotic people have become as well. And I think they should also know that having any kind of public political platform does come at a cost. And I'm not saying that so that people can be, more careful and more afraid to speak out about their values when they need to. It's actually the exact opposite, to embolden them and have them say, these maniacs cannot intimidate us into silence.
Yeah, especially when there's lots of people doing it together. When people start speaking out together, it's like you can't whack all the moles at once. You just give up at that point. The moles own the garden.
Luke, you've done a bunch of stories that have really riled a lot of people up. I'm curious if you've dealt with similar stuff or if you have thoughts on
You know, I think there's a lot of keyboard warriors online that want to intimidate, and there's a lot of people, and this is not what you're doing. What happened to you is serious. It's happened a number of times. A lot of journalists want to play victim. You know, I got a death threat, and it's like some guy like sent you a DM on Twitter that's like, you know, like, I wish you were dead. Like, all right, that's not a credible threat.
Right.
But when you look at what's happened with January 6th, there's been like all these long magazine articles like, so the journalists are having to go to therapy. And I think what you've dealt with is objectively probably more serious than those journalists that were there for essentially a riot. So
that's a good point, and it's a big component of like how I'm feeling when they're saying like, don't tell people this is happening. And I'm like, we just had that story from Project Veritas. I don't know if you guys saw it, where that the journalist was like, you are not traumatized by January 6th. You know, did you see this video where he's basically saying like, you were out there having fun, you are not worried. And the Democrat narrative on January 6th is like the violent insurrection. The journalist narrative on everything they do is like, every day I wake up and someone sends me mean words.
Yeah.
And then it's like, we were swatted 6 times. Now we've had an incident where the bomb squad's been deployed, and you know, I can't go into details, but there is a reason for why they're deployed. It wasn't the same as a swatting. Like, something actually happened. We have to be careful about discussing the full details, but it called whatever happened was serious enough where they actually called reinforcements. So like, I'm actually worried we're going to hear, you know, the house shake or something like that.
Yeah,
like there may actually be something about to happen.
That's why I'm asking people pray. I mean, if you pray the rosary, but just prayer in general would be very, very appreciated.
There's not really an instruction manual for this kind of career path. So I think this is just par for the course, probably. It's just a matter of having precautions set up, like perimeters set up where things get looked at and inspected on their way in, so that we don't come to a point where we have to.
Security's insane.
Well, and
we're getting crazy with it.
I'll also say this. I definitely understand the argument that it could be dangerous to speak out about this to some extent, because then you incentivize copycat criminals, or you embolden the person who's doing it in the first place. But as you've mentioned, we are living in an era of crocodile tears. And I think it's important for people to see people who actually are put in a situation of danger not falling apart and losing it because they want to score cheap political points with their hysteria.
Well, I'm just, you know, shouldn't the New York Times have talked about any one of these major instances where we got swatted, like live on air?
What's in it for them?
Well, right. And so what I kind of see here is you'll hear the narrative from the corporate journalists about how they're so oppressed, but they obviously have disdain for us. They don't care about us. You know, what happens to us is not news to these big corporate entities, but whatever happens to them is.
Yeah, I mean, you're a journalist who's literally being attacked, as are the people around you.
As is James O'Keefe.
Exactly.
And so, you know, it's funny how if you are outside the establishment, it's clear. There's two different worlds here. Those who are actually resisting, those who are actually standing up for the individual or for rights, and those who are shills for corporations, those who are shills for themselves are grifting, you know?
Do you think there are people that are actually trying to help the individuals and not shilling for corporations?
Yeah.
Or so you can be elite and not be a shill?
Bro, I mean, like, we're a big company. We make a lot of money. You know what I mean?
Like, I was asking Seamus the other night,
James O'Keefe
what are the elite?
Also doing
like,
really
what?
well.
And he was like, elite are the people that will never get in trouble for what they did. And I was
Yeah,
like, that's a horrible way of explaining the truth to me, Shane. Thanks. But can those people that never get in trouble be good people too? That's what I'm wondering. Like, or are they just kind of ousted? Like Elon Musk, he's definitely wealthy enough to be in that group, but is he accepted in that group because he's not a sociopath? At least doesn't seem to be.
That's an interesting question. I mean, they say absolute power can corrupt absolutely. So it's difficult to find people in that kind of a position who have the integrity to behave decently, but I'm sure there are some.
That's promising.
Yeah, look, you can look at Donald Trump, and especially with what's been going on earlier today, I'm looking at all the news and I'm like thinking like, man, what is the lead story? You've got Russia sanctioning Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. And I'm like, that's interesting, but doesn't really matter, is it? You know, then you've got some crazed, you know, some angry TV host in Russia saying someone should tell the U.S. you give us back our money or you get the tactical or strategic, your choice, which is in reference to nuclear strike against us. And then I'm like, but he's just some guy on TV. I mean, he's just some guy's waving his arms. And then I'm just like, and then I saw someone tweeted about Trevor Noah. Ian Miles Chong tweeted about Trevor Noah because he was saying it makes no sense that they're doing the vax mandates in New York now because Kyrie Irving couldn't play, but he could go and hug the players as a fan. It's the craziest thing ever. And then I just thought to myself, like, man, Joe Biden really is like the worst president we've ever had, isn't he? And then I'm like, well, Woodrow Wilson,
Yeah,
he was bad too, though.
Yeah, we were talking about this before the show, and it's a complicated question because even though I really didn't like Obama or Clinton, I definitely didn't think W was the best. If someone asked me who's the worst president, I probably would have pointed to Woodrow Wilson. But there is something about having a person in the Oval Office who literally cannot speak that makes me reconsider that position or want to reconsider that position. Biden could be the worst president we've ever had, and I don't say that lightly.
For sure. Being a bad president can take different ways. You could be like a private like a psychopath that's like uses the law to bend it to his will. That's a horrible president. But then you get the demented human that can't function properly, that doesn't speak. That's in my opinion, that's more dangerous. I'd rather have an authoritative psychopath that at least is going to help the country function mechanically. This guy is like embarrassing us when he speaks in public.
That's a good point.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.